default back, and we've seen people in 1 hour that were completely healed from Parkinson's in 1 hour.
Hello, and welcome to the Pacific Channel, where you learn about the law of attraction, how to manifest anything you want, meditation, and more. In this video, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about how we may think that most people who get into this work do it because they want to heal or attract abundance or attract other things. But the real reason people do it is to feel whole, to feel wholeness. It's about living in the present moment and managing how you feel, managing your energy. So it's about the experience of creating, of manifesting what you want. He also talks about how when you start to get what you want, when you start to get the law of attraction to work, you want more of it. And that's totally normal and natural. We are programmed to desire things. And even the desire to not desire is still a desire. In this video, Dr. Joe will explain all of this and more. Let's listen to him now.
I think that if you're truly evolving your experience, a lot of people come for a lot of reasons into this work. They want healings, they want abundance, as you said, they want new relationships, they want the mystical. But what they ultimately realize is they want wholeness. And when they manage their attention, when they learn how to manage their attention, wow, we've seen this so many times at week-long events. When you manage your attention, you manage your energy, right? So if you're truly present, your energy changes. Energy is not being scattered all over in different directions, because that's where your attention is when you're aroused. So people really come, we see, for that feeling of connection, that feeling of acceptance, that feeling of wholeness, that feeling of oneness, that feeling that they're actually doing to themselves. Nobody's doing that to them. They're actually making themselves happy, which is such an important thing for people to see. So when that starts to happen, you think you want the car or the house or the plane or the job or whatever. Really, what we want is that feeling of wholeness and connection. So there's a lot of ways to get there, because in creating from lack or having things that you don't want, the realization that you're separate from something that you do want then causes you to want to do something to get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what we're kind of programmed to do in a lot of ways. And when we finally get it and the experience happens, then that feeling from that experience takes away that lack or separation. But really, as you evolve and you start realizing that, I use this idea of having a really noble life. That's something that I want to do. And so if I start tuning into all the things that I want in my life, tuning into those potentials like we just explained with Samuel, if I start doing that and I start realizing I want another thing or to advance my understanding, well, then if I'm tuning in to say 2 or 3 different things, or I want 2 or 3 different things and I'm playing with tuning into each one of those, I may actually just make each one of those one of the conditions under that letter N. So then I've tuned into the mystical, I've tuned into more synchronicities in my life, I've tuned into connection and downloads and things that I love, right? So I've tuned into all of those things. So those then become part of the list instead of their individual list. Now that just becomes part of my new list. As I list those things now, that represents those things, making a difference in the world, whatever it is, I've tuned into all of those things. So now after I've tuned into them, they become familiar to me and I can connect with them. Then I just put them in the list of what that N represents, which is, a really wonderful and meaningful life. And I think people have lost the feeling of meaning in a lot of ways for so many reasons. So you can evolve it. The emotions that you experience when these happen should be a summation of all the ones you've felt before. So if the mystical created awe and wonder and inspiration and an awakening or grateful for life, and one of the other ones did as well, well, then you know that feeling, and so it should be familiar to you. But the experience of enhancing it would be a feeling or emotion that would be more of that, right? So I always think, God, if I can feel a little bit more of what I'm feeling now, I can forecast an experience that's kind of like this feeling, right? And I can draw it to me. So make your list, tune into one thing, write down that letter, tune into those intentions, write down the intention and then tune into that letter and get familiar with that for 2 weeks. And then after a couple weeks and the synchronicities start happening and you start noticing, okay, now take that and put that as one of the things and evolve that letter now to a different letter and have that still be one of the things. And and keep tuning in, and you can create, infinite number of frequencies when you do that. So I think it's healthy to evolve it. I think it's healthy to sit down at the end of a couple weeks and just see if you still want the same things, if you're really invested in creating. And so it always changes, it always evolves. And as you tune in, just place each one of those into a bigger picture. And if you practice, you should be able to do it pretty easily. We're programmed to do that. We're programmed. You have that experience and you create something wonderful in your life, and you do your meditation and you feel that feeling. And then you start creating outcomes in your life. And then when you start creating outcomes in your life, you get a little rush of the pleasure center in your brain that makes you feel that wonderful feeling. And there's dopamine and there's serotonin and all these wonderful growth hormone factors, and all these wonderful neurotransmitters are being released, and oxytocin, and you're expanding, and that feels really good, right? And so then the person has a fork in the road. Once they feel that feeling of feeling good, no different than anybody who does anything good, they want more of it. And there's only two ways to get it, is to replicate the act, and that takes time and energy, or to do something that's going to make that feeling enhance. So then, that's where we have to make a choice, that we're needing something in our outer world to make us feel more of that. And that is why we default back to that program. We're programmed to do that. And so it goes against the program. And the body is influencing the mind to say, get me more of this right away, but get it to me that's a lot faster. So addictive behaviors then, after the experience and after the synchronicity, after the feeling, there comes a refractory period that can start to linger or start to slow down or wear off. And when it does, the body starts influencing the mind to get more of it. And one experience with it against hundreds of thousands, if not millions of experiences of doing it the other way, it makes sense then that the default system happens and people make one of a few choices in order to continue that feeling. So that's the response in the environment that we've been conditioned to, that the outer world has to create the feeling in the inner world. And that person just had an experience where the inner world actually created an experience in their outer world. And it takes quite a bit of effort to be able to sustain that state. I certainly understand it. But I think the healthy thing for us to do really is, if we're truly on the path, if we're truly interested in getting closer to source or evolving our experience, the next question would be, at the end of the day, how did I do? What did I do well? Well, I dinged it. I hit an outcome. I created an effect in my life, and I felt like I had the energy to do it, and it seemed like I was in the flow, and it was seamless, and it was easy, and everything was opening up for me. I just trusted, and it was just a wonderful experience. You got to review that, because that's really easy to forget it when you're programmed in another way. So what did I do well today? And let me just review it in my mind. How can I review how I did that? How did I create that effect? I want to review what I did so I can do it again tomorrow. I want to do that again tomorrow. I want my inner world to begin to affect my outer world. So then the next question is, where did I lose it today? When did I lose it? At what point? When did I start slipping back to the default of another program? Oh, it happened when I saw so-and-so, or I got on my social media and then I had a drink, or whatever it is that people do to do that. When was it that started you sliding back into that old self? It's actually a very, very good explanation. And what was that moment? Because you didn't fail, right? You forgot, and you went back, and you got to start remembering at that very moment. And that takes energy and awareness and not forgetting. And that's the hard part, because it's easier to choose the other one unconsciously. Then that's the hardest part of change, right? Making a different choice and trusting in yourself and trusting in the unknown and trusting in possibility, however you want to say it. You got to review that. You got to see it like you're looking at yourself dancing, like you're looking at yourself giving a public speech, looking at yourself eating, looking at yourself doing something in your life. You got to look at yourself. You got to observe yourself. You got to not be the program. You got to be conscious and not unconscious. And you got to settle down, and you got to look at that other choice you made and what caused that other choice to happen. And it's not enough to have the insight. It's actually, what's most important is how you're going to plan your behavior tomorrow. Now, the planning of the behavior, the mental rehearsal of the act, after you saw who you no longer wanted to be, and what thought you had and what choice you made that led to a certain action. Now you got to start thinking of what choice you do want to make based on a new thought you want to think. And you got to think that thought, and then you got to see yourself making that choice. And then you got to rehearse in your mind doing the act And you got to rehearse it. And if you did it properly, you're installing new circuits in your brain by rehearsing, because the brain doesn't know the difference. Wow, this is really important, because now you have some hardware in place to use when you start your day. Your brain doesn't know the difference. It looks like the experience has already happened. It looks like you've already done it. So now you're priming your brain into that action. Keep doing it and it becomes easier. It becomes more automatic, a software program. That's really, really, really important, because if you do this properly, you're actually going to want that experience to happen, and you'll start thinking about that experience and how it would unfold if you did it differently. And if you did that properly, you would start feeling the feeling of that experience before it happened, and you're taking your body really out of the past and into the future with the brain along with it. Keep doing that time and time again. You'll evolve your experience. Now, it doesn't mean you won't fall at another point, because that happens to everybody. It's just that you made a different choice, and your interest really is into having your inner world affect your outer world instead of your outer world consuming and affecting your inner world. You don't get a lot of support for this in the world. You can't go on, Instagram and really have a conversation. Anybody want to change their program? If you're in the river of change and you're truly doing it, you're really focused on wanting that opportunity to happen so you can evolve your experience past it. That's what it's really about. This work, I want to be very practical for people in their lives. And so there's no loss here. You didn't fail in any way. You didn't do anything wrong. You just forgot. You just went unconscious. And we do this in variations of thousands of different ways. The opportunity, though, new day, new lifetime, truly a soul, a spirit, an individual that's really on the journey back to a greater and greater degrees of love or wholeness, would forgive themselves for the fact that they went unconscious, learned from the experience. They didn't lose. When you lose the lesson, you may lose. But if you get the lesson, then, okay, I got the lesson from my experience in life today. I'm going to give it another shot tomorrow. I think people make great strides, and I pay really close attention to people who heal in this work, really close attention to what they say. And many of them, had to get really good at doing it consciously all the time with their eyes open and not default back to the old self. They did this exact thing. They just said, God, I lost it when I saw my ex. God, I lost it when I saw the news. I lost it when I saw my coworker. I lost it at that point. Oh my God. That's what I got to overcome now. I got to overcome my response to the environment. Now, when you overcome the response to the environment, what you're really saying is, I don't want my environment to control the way I feel and think. That's the program being a victim. Now you're saying, I want my thinking and feeling to begin to produce outcomes in my environment. Well, again, there's not a lot of people doing that, although more and more people are beginning to understand it. So that's the work. They heal when they no longer respond to their known life in the same way. They're no longer signaling the same gene emotionally. That's when their body's starting to move out of the past. But they're not waiting for their healing to happen to feel gratitude. They're understanding that their gratitude and their wholeheartedness and their joy and their inspiration really is when their healing begins. They're starting to teach their body emotionally what it would feel like if the healing would occur. And if they get really good at it, they're going to signal new genes. And if they can stay there in that state, and those emotions drive certain behaviors that become habits and start influencing the way they think, and those thoughts are more elevated, well, it totally makes sense then that they could actually stay in that same health condition. Default back, and we've seen people in 1 hour that were completely healed from Parkinson's. In 1 hour, one response to one circumstance that was bad news caused the complete condition to recur, and paralysis and everything else. And she had to really realize how fast we can do that. So there's nothing wrong. I just think that we just have to evolve our experience every day. So take a few moments, instead of scrolling through your social media, take a few moments and ask yourself, how'd I do? And where did I default? And let me remember the next time, and let me plan and execute differently. Let me rehearse it. And let me go through the experience in my mind so I can feel the emotion before it happens. I think you're priming your brain and body to more than likely to be able to do.
One of the greatest challenges as human beings is being able to be objective about ourselves. Being objective about ourselves is having the ability to step outside of our programming, step outside of who we have been, and see how we think, act, and behave while in the matrix, while in this physical reality. When Dr. Joe talks about asking yourself, when did you go wrong today? What he's really asking you to do is to figure out what triggered you to step right back into your old paradigm, into your old programming. So if your day was going great until you had to deal with your ex, for example, then that's what you need to work on. It's really not hard to understand how it works, but it's not easy to master this. But once you do master this, nothing external to you will be able to control how you feel any longer. And that is true freedom. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to watch more videos like this. And if you feel so inclined, please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching and have a great day or night.